You got
Hey
me?
Keith, what's up, man?
Yo, what's
How
going
are
on,
you?
man? You got
I'm
me?
Tom. I got Soul. How are you?
All right, man. What's going on? Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for taking some time out, man.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. I know your history well. I know a touch of jazz pretty well, and what you've done with Musiq Soulchild and all those artists. So, I was excited to speak with you.
I'm touched, man. I'm touched. I put on Facebook. I'm like, man, I'm honored. I'm just,
Oh yeah.
I got 2 or 3 songs that's known. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just someone like I study the liner notes, and I just love history, the history of, because I grew up in that era of music. I grew up listening to it. It had an impact on me, so I love to help those creators share their story. So
Okay.
that's why I reached out to you. And if you've ever been on our site, we've done tons of interviews. We talk to
Yeah.
songwriters, producers, everyone. So it'll be another one we could add to our list of people we've spoken to.
All right. Cool. Cool.
So we'll start at the beginning, man. Talk about like where you even learned your skills as a songwriter and producer and all that.
Oh, wow. That's in short, I give you the short version. That's basically it. I'm a church kid. So
Yeah.
like Philly, most Philly guys are like some kind of like church kid or something like that. It's pretty much it. I grew up in a traditional old Black Baptist church. And plugs and shout outs. Fatine from Kendrick, you familiar with him, right?
Yeah, of
His
course.
grandfather was old deacon at our church, and his grandfather
Nice.
was a guitar player, and his grandfather could sing off the hook. So I guess that's where he got it from. That's why he can sing so well. But I learned how to play off of actually his grandpa and my grandfather and dad, and so I learned how
Wow.
to play by ear mostly. So yeah, that's
Pretty cool.
basically it.
Well, tell us a story of how you landed at A Touch of Jazz, because I'm always so curious to hear these stories. I love what was going on there and how everything was created. But how did you end up there?
Man, so if you take all 6 of us, Andre Harris, Vidal Davis, Darren Henson, Ivan Barrios, Carvin Higgins, and myself,
Hmm.
and then you add 6 more guys that didn't make it through, and then you add James Poyser and Vic Duplay, you'll get the whole 3D angle of it, and then you got to add
Wow.
Jazzy Jeff. But my
Yeah.
portion of it is I ended up meeting Jazzy Jeff in 8th Street Music Store in Philadelphia. I didn't know exactly who he was. He invited me down to the studio. Come to find out, my boy John Roberts knew him. I met James Poyser. James Poyser knew him. Then I started hanging out at Gladwin at the studio before it became like A Touch of Jazz that most people in Philly know it for. And
Mhm.
so Jazzy Jeff was up at Gladwin, PA, and he decided to move to Philly. When he decided to move to Philly, Vidal Davis, Carvin Higgins, and myself, 3 of us were kind of hanging. And then he started putting it together. We got Andre Harris in there. Darren Henson, Ivan Barrios came from Atlantic City because they already knew Jeff had their own relationship. Darren Henson did. And then we all just, we kind of just ended up being those 6 guys that stayed in the race and we got it
Yeah.
done.
Wow. And the other 6 guys, you mentioned 6 didn't make it, you said?
Yeah, it's 6 other guys, and it wasn't like a tryout, but it was kind of
Oh,
like
okay.
there were only 2 rooms at the time, and
Yeah.
somehow they didn't fit. Like Vidal and Dre had like a brother relationship,
Yeah.
and then the 3 of us knew each other from church, and then Darren and Ivan were from AC together, and Carvin was already down with a crew, and he was holding
Yeah.
his own, and the 6 of us kind of just ended up being the last 6 out of like 12 dudes and more. There was a
Gotcha.
lot of guys hanging around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those other dudes, they didn't end up being like, they didn't start a career and become anybody, or?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I don't remember all of them, but
Yeah.
I can't remember all their names, but they all were doing stuff like afterwards.
Yeah.
They just weren't in our crew of the 6.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So take us back to the environment when you got there, what it was like, with all the talent in there and working inside of there.
Oh man, when I say it's the best. Even now, I do a show on Facebook, and every now and then when I have like musicians, artists, producers on there, people always look for us to be able to like give that story of what it was like. To me, it was the best experience. You can't remake that, and you can't trade it. You take the good, the bad, the ugly, the remorse, the regrets, and the blessings, and you just say it was what it was, and we enjoyed it. So it was really one of those things I call cool competition, where you didn't really have each other. We weren't like thieves to each other. We were just kind of like iron sharpens iron. If I were to get spiritual a little bit, we have a thing called iron sharpens iron. It's in the Bible. And we kind of were like that. Somebody had something that the other guy didn't have, and we all, you know, just brushed off each other, and we did what we felt. And shout out to Jill Scott, who her songs, her album is Words and Sounds. We were just great with our sounds. She was great with her words. Carvin and Darren were the exception because they did lyrics. I even did lyrics a little bit, but the other three, we didn't do lyrics. But we had sound, whether it was knocking on the door, recording somebody screaming, you know, brushing something, making a beat, whatever it was a sound, and we made music out of it. And people started to take notice of it. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Take me back to what ended up being your first placement.
My first placement at A Touch of Jazz, I want to say my first placement was Tatiana Ali. And that's a song that Darren Henson, Tia Cherie, and myself did. It started as a track that I was just doing by myself, and then I was working on it with Tia, who's a church girl, and I had her sing this R&B song on there. But you know, I wasn't really into beats pretty much because I'm a keyboard player, and so Darren jumped in on the track and threw this dope, crazy beat on there. Then we ended up doing production together. And when Will Smith was actually working on his album, I didn't get landed on his album yet, but he wanted that song for Tatiana Ali on his show. And so we didn't want to give the song up, but we gave it up and got that placement. And that was really like the first placement. Yeah.
Got you.
Yep.
So I noticed, like, from looking at track listings and liner notes, you worked with Darren Henson a lot and collaborated with him. How did that partnership come together? What was that?
So the thing that made A Touch of Jazz so unique was, I think we coined partnership. So you kind of had like Tone and Poke, you had Ellie and Babyface, you know, you had Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis and all, but then we ended up kind of taking on that kind of identity as well. Not really after them, but we did it because Jeff, shout outs to Jeff had the studio. Now, God bless the child, it has his own. Darren had his own drum machine and stuff. I had my own stuff. The funny thing is, Darren and I, the reason why we collaborated was because we were kind of independent. He had his stuff, I had my stuff. It was kind of like, we don't need the studio, but the studio is a blessing. And it was only 2 rooms. You got 6 guys in 2 rooms after 12. So when you go to make a track, if it's like first come, first serve, it's not really good. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, if I'm sitting here, I'm in the studio, and you kind of want to work, but I got the room first, then it's kind of like you SOL. And so what we kind of did was we kind of felt the heart of each other, then we kind of would know what the other person was lacking. And so it was kind of like a Reese's peanut butter cup situation, you know, where you do that collabo, and it's kind of like the lime and the lemon in the Corona bottle. It was just like, let's do it together. And we started coming up with stuff, and it was working. And so after that, it was kind of like we would get more work done. So I was heavier on the engineering side. So I would be like a keyboard guy. And then it was easier to work with somebody that knew beats. It was easier to work with somebody that knew drums. And then I could write lyrics, but lyrics were just corny to me. All lyrics were corny because it was just like sappy. So I was like, let me just do the music, work with somebody that can write. And so production-wise, 2 heads were better than 1. And we learned the science of that. And that's how you end up getting Darren and Keith, Carvin and Ivan, Vidal and Dre. And the crazy thing about all 6 of us is this. So if you look at Darren and I, it's more so like keys and drums. And then you have the other dynamic with Darren and I. Darren's lyrics are melody. Then you take a Vidal and Dre, where both of them can play keys. Andre at the time wasn't even playing guitar. He can play everything now, I think. So shout out to him. He can play everything. But then you have those 2 were both drummers, but you had Andre was called Lazy Dre, and Vidal was more of a technical guy like me. So to their dynamic, he's the technical guy. So myself, Vidal, and Ivan were 3 technical people. It's not that Carvin, Dre, and the other guy and Darren weren't. It's just that we were easier to do it. So everybody collabed that way, and it's kind of like Wherever your strength is, you do that in the session. So it only took 2 people to do it. Between the strengths
Right.
of the 2, we got good product in a duo.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love to hear that. You know what I always think about it, and when I think of Touch of Jazz, I was just recently interviewing Carvin. You know, I've known him for many years, and he shared with me that it was just kids, you know, not knowing any better, just creating good music. No one to tell them what to do,
Right.
and just great music came out of it. Is that what you experienced there?
Yeah. Basically, it was. I mean, we were young. We all bought. The one thing that's never really told when people interview us, or I watch the other guys interview, it's not that we missed it or they missed it. It's really that we were all somebody before we came to the table. And so, because if we don't say that, then it's kind of like people be like, "Oh, Jeff made you guys," and we're like, "No," you know, or you know, somebody might say to Jazzy Jeff, like, if it wasn't for them guys, and then he might be like, "Nah." So everybody had something that they brought to the table. And again, back to my thing, iron sharpens iron, which means the qualifier there is you're somebody, I'm somebody, but we can be something great together. You know?
Right.
Yep.
Gotcha. That makes total sense.
Yep.
So when I reached out to you, I was telling you about how I really like this Musiq Soulchild song you did on his debut. I Just Want to Sing. Before we talk about that, though, tell me about when Musiq came in originally, what you remember about him coming into the studio and then, you know, as an artist. And what do you remember about those moments?
Let me say this on record. I'm going to say this on record. And I'll just put it here and leave it. We've all been through a lot. We've all been through a lot. All the guys been through a lot. It's crazy. However, let the truth be told, and I'm going to add something else in there because I'm going to put it on record because something else I don't like this being said. I'm going to just touch it. But check this out. I love to tell the story this way. Carvin ends up being the guy that says, I really don't do anything. I'm a rapper. I know I can write, but he hadn't really established himself as the writer. Because around that time, you had dope people, you know, God rest his soul, with Sean Daniels, you know, different people that's out that if as a producer, you're trying to get them to write on your stuff. Nobody's really checking Carv out right now. So when we had our big meeting at Jeff's house and we're back down in the studio, I will say this, and I'll let Carvin tell his side of it. Carvin used to come to my house, him and Val and Rome. They would come to my house, and when the studio was crowded, we would still write songs in the basement, him and Valvin. But Carr's pen was just getting better and better. His pen was great as a rapper, but not known as a singer. And then because he can't sing, it wasn't like getting there. So music was a blessing when he found music, because it was kind of like, yo, this dude don't really write, but he got like kind of a swag to him. But we were kind of like, his tone is a little, and you know, we were like, no. So my version of it, and I stand to be corrected if something goes wrong. My version of it is, Carvin used to take, do you remember DAT tapes?
Yes.
Okay, good. You're telling your age, you're telling your age. So the DAT tapes, we would have the DAT tapes, and you would have your own box. So you make tracks, put them on the DAT. Carvin would come in the room and be like, oh, that's hot. Let me write to that. And, you know, I'm not going to speak for everybody else. I was kind of shady with the, like, I want to put this on Kenny Lattimore. I want to put this on so-and-so. We want to shop it to a Mary J. Blige or something. So you kind of was shunning Carvin like, nah. And so what Carvin would do, he would take the DAT and literally jack our tracks, put them on the DA-88, and then cut to it with music. Well, again, I'm not going to speak for everybody else. As a collective, we started to get a little pissed. Like, yo, man, don't be taking my track and putting it on the dude. But then after a while, it was kind of like, I think he's on to something. That kid got a flow. But again, if it's no money coming across the table, you kind of like, So J Hips and Mike, Jay and Mike, I just call them Jay and Mike, Mama's boys. They were kind of managing music or something, my version of it again. And I think what happened was they ended up getting with Def Jam, and they got some buzz. And then it was like, yo, this kid's about to get a deal. So, of course, what do you think we're going to do as producers? Hey, Carv, hey, I got some tracks for you, bro. Here goes some tracks, man. Take these. You know, now everything changed. The good thing is Carvin had a great heart, and he wasn't like, no, y'all don't want to mess with me. Yeah. Cool. We still family. So I was kind of working with Carv even when everybody else kind of wasn't. Everybody had that kind of like, you know, we weren't fronting on him, but it was just like, it wasn't a priority. But then it started to become a priority. We started matter of fact, in my car right now in the garage, I have a CD with unreleased Musiq Soulchild stuff that nobody has ever heard on the market yet.
Oh,
I got like 5 songs in there that we wrote, and it's incredible. Great stuff.
man.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. I might be hounding you for that stuff to hear, man.
Man, it's
That's
dope.
dope.
Like, yeah, it's some great stuff that we cut, man.
That's dope. Well, let's talk about this great song you did put out on that album, 143. And
Okay.
let me tell you what I love about this song, because when I heard, Music's debut, I think I was about 17, 18, and it came out, it really stuck to me because it was like nothing else I was hearing at the time, the way, the lyrics, and that's why it spoke to me. And 143 specifically, because it was just so dope. Lyrically, it was like nothing else, no story you heard in a song, so the way it was flipped, that's why what I loved about it, and I still play it 20 years later to this day. So talk about, creating that song.
Wow. So I was a good guy at the missing link stuff. So
Yeah.
you had the other guys were great at just creating great stuff. I was more targeted because of my skill set with music, and music's already rolling. Carvin's already rolling with the guys. I think he's getting what he needs from Ivan and Andre and stuff like that. And then for me, I was just kind of like, they were like, we want something like a Stevie Wonder-ish something.
Mm.
And so the inspiration from that was I took out of all the church music I knew, I started just putting progressions together that would do it, while Carvin the Music's talking about a song that, very creative. They're like, remember we used to say 143,
Yeah.
and I love you, and remember the pager when you text 07734 hello,
Yeah.
and 143 on the pager, your girl,
Yeah.
oh, I love you. You're like, oh. So we did that, and we were like, okay, let's do a song like that. And so when they were talking it, you could talk and I could hear it while I'm playing. So, when they started to write, it was like, how many times have I called you, just to say, I love you. And I'm just like, boom. And then we had that change like, down, 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 down. And that's how it basically came together.
Right.
Just matter of fact, it was just sitting around playing on the roads. And the thing was, oh my gosh, if somebody were to do a film on all of us, it would be funny to have Carv come in. I got a bust on him live, man. It's funny because when Carv was singing, he would always have like Skittles or M&Ms or something. He'd always shake it. He'd be like, oh, here's something. Oh, hold up. I hear something. Wait, hold on. And I'm playing on the piano, and the keys like, boom. He was like, how many times I told you? And it's like the key is totally off, jacked up, everything, but it's like you can hear it. Like,
yeah.
When I say like myself, Tia, Jill, Eric Roberson, I'm talking dope singers.
Yeah.
They can listen to Carvin sing and get an understanding where he's going. You know what I'm saying? There's somebody else that don't know him, they like, yo,
yeah,
that's not cool. Like, he's tone deaf or something, but like, it's something about his heart, the way he would go at it. His words, it didn't matter if his tone was off. You could feel it, and you could just keep creating,
Right.
Yep.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
And now the song Keep It Real, which was on the Rush Hour 2 soundtrack, you did that one. Was that one recorded after the first album? What was the timeline of that?
That was after the first album. So it was kind of like, that was a weird thing. It's kind of like you called me for an interview. I was just like, oh, really? I didn't know anybody was noticing. And for the soundtrack, for the Rush Hour 2, they were like, yo, we want to do something with Redman. So I'm thinking like, hey, Darren, you got an idea, or Ivan, Darren and Ivan was more so like the hip hop guys. They're like DJs, so they know records and beats. But then it was just kind of like, I had a loop to start rolling with, so I took the loop, but they wanted it to sound like a Musiq Soulchild song. And so I'm just kind of like, it's Redman though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was just like, I started doing the music and got the track together, and they were like, yeah, that's a go. Finish it up. I'm like, all right. And it was like, yeah, but make sure it's soulful. I got soul.
Yeah.
Shout out to y'all.
Yeah.
Like, keep it soulful. And I'm like, you sure you don't want it like New Yorkish hip hop? And it was just like, and actually, I played the music all the way down on that. So like the instrumentation played it straight through. It wasn't like sequenced, and other than the loop, everything was done straight down. Wow. Yeah.
And that's why I think that might be one of the only times I've heard him curse on one of his songs.
Music, yeah. All you know, front and mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy when you go to church on Sunday. Like, what you working on? You
Yeah.
like, I did something with Musiq and Redman, and they like,
Yeah.
oh, can I hear it? Well, yeah, it's not really a churchy, friendly type. That one part.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, man.
Well, speaking of church, you had on the second album, on the Just Listen album, you had Religious,
Yep.
the song. I believe that's the plaque behind you, right? For Just Listen that I'm looking at right there on the wall. Is
Yes,
that?
it is. Wow, I'm
I
surprised you
spotted that.
noticed that. You
I
good, man.
noticed.
You can read that. That's yeah. That's Just Listen, and then over here is that's the
Oh,
first.
wow. Dope.
Yeah.
And then Jill Scott underneath. Okay,
Yes.
cool. So I know I like Religious too. Tell me about that one.
Well, now that one you gotta unpack that by interviewing Darren Henson. That's the guy
Okay.
you want to interview for that. So Darren's the mastermind at picking out samples. He knew how to manipulate me real good, and because I had the key skill, Darren would play like a lot of hip hop stuff. Play loops and stuff that people would normally loop, and he knew it. He knows how to influence my ear to get me to kind of play a rendition of it or something. But when it came time for Musiq's second album, it kind of got away. Like, so Jill's first album, Floetry's first album, Musiq's first album, I'll forever love those in my heart. The
Yeah.
struggle came in on everything after that. Once you got after that, it started kind of, we got into the real world, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
you kind of lost that back in the day feel. So now it's more
Yeah.
like, you got to bring it and you got to go in. But thank goodness Darren basically had that loop, that and so when we had the opportunity, we were reached out to like, hey, we're gonna give you guys a spot on the album. What's good? Because family, everybody's still talking. I really had nothing for it because Carvin and Ivan's in the zone. Vidal and Dre's doing their thing, so it's kind of easy to get in. Other people are coming at music now, but Darren kind of saved us on that. And he had that knock. He had that knock that they didn't have on the rest of the album. So, we ended up doing that. So it was easy for me to build over top of the loop. And then, of course, the writing on there between Carvin and Musiq.
Right.
Yep.
It's real though what you said about, going from the first album, then I guess when they blow up and they hit it big, then it's totally different. So that's, didn't really think about it like that.
Yeah.
But that's real. That's real.
Listen, dude, that's a whole interview within itself. Like, just to know how that stuff came together, to get that, you can't recreate it. I don't care how hard you try. At best, you can have a reunion with the same people, but you can't just come outside of that with those artists and recreate that.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep. So let's take it back to Jill's first album. I know you were on that one as well. What do you remember about working with her originally?
Oh man, again, my version, because Jill probably kill me and somebody else be like, nah, you left something out of there or you told it wrong or whatever. What I remember is Jill was hanging out down in the studio with her girlfriend. She's somebody that was already special before we met her. She was already doing her thing. She was already kind of big time in my eyes, but she was hanging around. We're working with everybody else, and we're kind of like, hey, what's up, sis? But we overlooked her as an artist. It's one of those things that I wish I knew then what I know now. I started way earlier. And I think if I got my story right, I think Vidal Davis was the first one to cut. I think he did Long Walk with her. And once he hit that track, the way we were as the six guys, if you came down and you sang and everybody's just like, oh, dude's cool, but they not paying you no attention, one of us would take a chance, throw you in the booth. And if we pull it off right, then everybody's trying to cut with you like, yo, the bull hot. And then we start going. Once the ice was broken on Jill, I think Jeff was just like, I better cut with her. He kept saying it, and we were like, oh, okay, we'll get to it. Everything else is priority.
Wow.
But once we heard that first thing pop off, we were like, oh, snap. And then we just started cutting. And the one thing I love about her is it's always, so my show was called The Combo. It was always a conversation. Every dope song came from some kind of conversation. It wasn't like, oh, like one thing I remember about Jill, you couldn't just play her tracks. It was kind of like, if you're not having a conversation with me or feeling me, it's kind of like, nah. Like, you didn't do a bunch of tracks and you're like, oh, Jill, pick something off of there. It was kind of like, we're talking now and she's like, hey, and then you just talk and laugh and then you hit something on the keys and then she goes, oh, I like that right there. and then you start talking and you build it and you grow, and before you know it, then you go into the booth, and then you go in the booth, and then you say something, and you come out, and then you get the song. That's how that whole album. That's why it's called Words and Sounds.
Right.
Words and
Wow.
Sounds. You know, I don't
Still.
have the plaque that has the notebook on it, but one, she would just pull out her poetry book, her notebook, and she would just go into there, something that she wrote like God knows how long ago, and she'll be like, "Oh, play that again," and then next thing you know, she starts singing something. You like, "Oh, okay," and "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, let's loop it," and then go in the booth, and now we got a song.
Wow.
Incredible. Yep.
Another classic album you were part of.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then
Thank you.
we got to talk about Floetry now, and love Marsha. She's super cool with us. One of the dopest artists I've come across. And you had the single Floetic on that one, right?
Yes.
Talk about that a bit, and talk about getting to know them first and how that getting into the music.
Oh man, this was dope. So the funny thing about these girls is so shout out to James Poyser and Victor Duplay over there at their studio at the time, and Chauncey Childs. The best I remember is they had these two girls, and they were kind of like, James is busy, we don't have much going on here. I think Aunt Belle might have been over there, but it was just like, we don't know what to do with these two girls from London. It was like, so Jeff was like, okay, send them over here. So I never forget, Jazzy Jeff had his room around the hall, and he was like, Dan Keith, yo, I want you to meet these two girls. And it's like, the four of us are sitting in the room, and it's kind of like, when we meet them, it's these two nice looking London chicks, but they kind of got that tomboy thing going on. They weren't like the Philly girls. They was kind of like, yo, they play basketball. They wearing shell top Adidas. It was just like, okay, so we're kind of looking like, so what do y'all do? And it's just like, Natalie's like, I'm the flowist, and Marsha's like, I'm the songstress. Well, Blue's Clues, songstress is kind of like, so if I get this right, you rap and you sing. You do poetry and you do melody. It's like, yeah. So then we're trying to figure out what song do we cut, and we're like, we got to make a song that kind of tells people who the hell y'all are. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's something that Darren and I was going to do. We're going to find out, before we go anywhere, what the heck do y'all do, or how do we explain this to everybody? So we took the time, and that's what we did. And so, the track actually was, I never forget, Darren had his car, we riding up to New York, going to Master Ace's party. Master Ace was spinning. And again, Darren's the hip hop guy, so you got to interview him, get his side of it.
Yeah.
So he's playing the sample in the car. He's playing the record. I was like, oh man, we should flip that. He was like, oh, okay, cool. We get back to the studio. I'm going to loop that up. And so you can chop it up and recycle and play over that and roll with it. So I'm like, cool. Not knowing that we were going to meet these girls. So when we met them, Darren pulled that up. We started messing with it. They were like, yo, let's go with that. And there she wrote, and it was like, and what I did was I took that old Keith Churchy Boy bass line, is like boom, 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 and that was the whole song, man.
That's dope, man. I love that song.
Yeah.
There's so many songs that we could touch on that you worked on. I mean, I know you did stuff with Will Smith. I know you did stuff with Kenny Lattimore. But is there one that I didn't mention that particularly you're proud of that you would like to touch on?
Man, you know what? I think, and it's listen, I don't have a discography like the other guys. Shout outs to these other guys. Darren's got one of the best party songs on Little Kim. No matter what, people. The funny thing about that is I did a Latin song. I did a song called La Fiesta on Will's album. The plaque's at my mom's crib. Wish I had it. But I did a song called La Fiesta. And it was, it's got that, we got Kenny Dope, Louis Vega on it, the whole nine. And we went to New York, and I made a remix for that song. Because back in the day, it's kind of like you wanted to cash up on as much as you could. So you got the single, you want to slide in your own remix to get another little paycheck. Yeah. But we went up loaded. So Darren's got this track in the chamber. He's got another Latino track. And so he puts it on in New York, and Lil Kim and them went bananas. My track went bananas, but Will was like, oh, no, baby, I'm using that for my remix. that never came out. So I'm,
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Because I was trying to get it. But when Darren put his track on and it broke down to that boom, cat, scat, scat, boom, scat, everybody's up there like, yo, son. And he won New York. You know, New York today, like, yo, son, this it. Lil' Kim was like, I'm taking that. So he's got that one. You know, Andre, he's got Is It the Way? Vidal's got the Kenny Lattimore joint. My wife loves that album. Ivan's got their Musiq Soulchild. But here's my thing. He Loves Me with Jill Scott that's my song, period.
Yeah.
You know what really blesses my heart? Like, they had it on the battle. Of course, everybody wants their shout outs. So, of course, I ain't get my shout out. You know, I love everybody, but I ain't get my shout out. No problem. But the crazy thing is, every time I go to a show, it's like the crowd is waiting on that song. They're waiting on that. I think it's one of the most beautiful songs because once that first chord goes in, that seventh chord goes in, and it's like bloom, and then it's all pure. Off of the sustain, it's all just straight Jill right from her belly into You Love Me. However she attacks that note, it's just the bomb. And that song, Larry Gold, with the strings on there, I mean, the whole experience of that song, my dad passed in 2008, and he was the pastor at the time. I was sitting on the organ at church, and in an old Black Baptist church, the reverend starts talking, and you're kind of like, oh, Lord, we don't know where this is going. It's kind of like if you're Catholic and the priest is going in, and he's feeling it, you're like, oh, come on, dude, the game's about to start. So my dad's talking, and I started playing that song. And then I was just like, soon as church is over, I'm going to go to the studio and I'm going to record that. And that's exactly what I did. So that song from my dad talking to going to the studio in my suit to lighting the incense to smoke up the room, because I wasn't smoking at the time, to smoke up the room and get the vibe. And then Jill walks in and is like, hey, I like that. Can I write to it? I'm like, okay. Go in the other room with Carvin and Darren, and we're playing Sega Genesis. That's how old we are. We're playing Sega Genesis. And then she says, come here and listen to what I got. And she hit the play button on Cubase, and it was like, boom. She's like, You Love Me. I said, go in the booth. And we cut that song. And I didn't think it was going to make the album, but it became one of the favorites. It never actually became a single officially. But it is one of her most well-known songs, and so I mean that's my number one. Second one is Cross My Mind, you know, and that's the one I did with Darren Henson. That's a whole nother experience. I
mean, that's the one thing I'll say about that Jill song. It might not have been one of her biggest singles, but it is a cult classic, a cult favorite. And I know fans go crazy for that one, so you can definitely take credit for that.
And then they remixed it. That was the song that they did a illegal remix, actually made the album.
Oh,
because
really?
I think a DJ or somebody in San Francisco, they basically took the track and they made a club record out of it. And so that really kind of boosted the song up, got it, you know, the notoriety of it just shot up, because I go to Miami with Kenny Dope, Louis Vega, Jill's ex-husband, now he's a DJ, Terry Hunter, everybody. We're in Miami at the Winter Music Festival or something, and when they put that record on, everybody went bananas, and it's like, You Love Me, it's going. I'm like, yes, I'm happy to be here. That's my song, you know.
That's pretty wild, man.
Yep.
So I'll be honest, I didn't really keep up with you too much after you left A Touch of Jazz, and I was just texting, Carvin said, because I keep in touch with him, and he mentioned that you were his pastor for a while. Like I didn't realize, your career went that direction. So talk about, after you left A Touch of Jazz and kind of some of the things you were involved in.
Okay, so after Touch of Jazz, when we got out of there, so the six of us, we all basically, this was like the last huddle. In that huddle, we all ended up with an attorney. We got out of our situation with Jazzy Jeff. Once we got out of there, everybody kind of went in twos. And so my two, Darren Henson and I, we were managed by Herb Quarterman. And then we had Troy Carter. You know who Troy Carter is?
No, I don't think so.
He's big now. He was on Shark Tank with Mark Cuban and those guys.
Okay.
Philly guy. He was an investor at Uber way back when. So you got him and Jay Urban, Dr. J's son. They were managing us. And we ended up getting a publishing deal in 2005. We worked on Floetry's sophomore album.
Yeah.
We worked on the live album. Did some music stuff, some Jill stuff. Faith Evans, Patti LaBelle, Earth, Wind and Fire, Kim, the artist Kim, Love Calls My Name. We worked on a lot of stuff. We kept busy, and then I accepted my calling to preach in 2005. It's kind of a monkey wrench and everything. And then we ended up in another like legal battle situation because, you know, royalties, you got to keep up with them and you got to make things right, you know? And so that kind of just took me out of the vibe of stuff. And, you know, I'm pretty much indebted to my boy Darren. I don't think I held up my side of it dealing with my spiritual walk and also being in the zone like we were, because I really kind of did enjoy that environment of 6 guys. You know what I'm saying? And it's nothing on Darren. It's not him. It was just that me being a husband, wife going through MS. My wife has MS. She totally fine now, you know, 100%. Yeah. But during that time, we had our struggles. And then with my father passing in 2008, and then in and out of court with stuff, it really just turned me off of music. And I couldn't, you know, and then we had to leave out of our studio situation. Then we had to get another studio. We were in Sigma Sound, and then that building got taken over and foreclosed on or something. So it was just so much going on. You know, I just was here and there dibbling and dabbling, whatever.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. So I see, I mean, it looks like you're in a studio there now. Do you still make music or what?
Yeah.
Tell me.
I'm back on it now. Like,
you are.
Oh, yeah. So actually, before COVID hit, I'm just kind of like quietly you know, getting things going, you know, just get my feet wet again. The whole landscape has changed. And then once music started getting simple again, I'm just kind of like, and I'm not the older guy, I'm 48, but I'm not the older guy that's like, oh, music sucks now. I understand it, but I'm just like, yo, you know, so when they were having these battles on Instagram, you know, Swiss and Timberland, it was dope to hear like the Babyface Teddy stuff, that, you know, Eric and Jill and few other people, and now you got Alicia and John Legend coming on. It's kind of like there's this whole area of music that came out. It's like, I appreciate music as a whole, but you don't, my plaques on the wall, you don't have that stuff happening right now.
Yeah.
You know, in my opinion, it's like it's like this dead space in there. So now music never stops. So, you know, and if you're good at it, you're good at it. And out of nowhere, you can just pop back in and just get in there. And so I'm very optimistic about forward movement with it. You know, very optimistic. I can say that.
That's awesome, man. Glad to hear you're back at it. Yeah. You know, and you know, we're just about out of time, man. I really appreciate all these stories you shared with me. You know, giving me all the history, and you know, definitely gives me a new perspective. When I hear these stories as a music fan and lover, it definitely helps me appreciate the music more. So, you know, that's something I appreciate you for. And this interview, we'll put this on the website. We'll share it on our YouTube channel. Make sure everyone can take a look at it who didn't join us here tonight. But, you know, I really appreciate you making the time, man.
Oh, no, thank you for having me, man. I should bring you on my show, man.
Yeah, let me know. I haven't checked it out. I got to check that out. I hadn't heard it.
Yeah, on Facebook, man. Man, you jump on there. So
I'll check your Facebook. Yeah, I'll see what you got going on.
Out on there, man.
Cool. You know what? I got to find Darren next. Actually, I hadn't looked for him yet.
Oh yeah.
But is he on Facebook too, or what's the best way you think?
He's on Instagram. No Gravity.
I'll look him up on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
No Gravity. If you look up No Gravity, you'll find him. You'll see him. He's probably got the thing with the headphones on it though. He's got some deeper stuff, man. Like he's very sharp. Like he's actually my conscience in a sense.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to remembering stuff, like he's very accurate. Very accurate. Yep.
Cool. I look forward to connecting with him. And hey, man, thank you again. It was a pleasure to speak with you, an honor to talk to you. And you know, thank you for all the great music you've given us. And excited you're back at it.
Yes, thank you, man. Anytime, man. Just you know how to get in touch with me.
Awesome, man.
Right.
Thanks again. I'll talk to you soon.
Have a good
Take care.
Right.